The city was dead. Captain Rayner walked through the ruins with slow, careful steps. His armor was burned, his weapon was half broken, and the air smelled of metal, smoke, and blood. All around him were fallen buildings, black skeletons of glass and steel. The sky was a strange dark red, still glowing from the last explosions. He had lost contact with his unit 2 days ago. The war was supposed to be over. Humanity had won against the alien race called the Zilari. The victory message had gone across all channels. The Zilari are finished. But as Rayner walked through the silence, he saw no victory, only ghosts. He stopped near a broken transport ship. Its hull was cracked open like a metal egg, wires and bodies scattered around it. The humans had bombed this city to ashes. He had been part of that attack. Now, seeing the destruction, something inside him felt cold. Then he heard a sound, a soft, weak sound, like someone breathing. Rayner turned fast, his weapon raised. His helmet scanner showed no sign of life, but the sound came again, closer this time. It was not a soldier. It was too small, too fragile. He followed the noise through the dust until he reached what had once been a small home. The walls were broken, the floor covered in glass and ash. In the corner, under a fallen beam, he saw movement. A small shape. He aimed his rifle. "Don't move," he said sharply. The figure froze, then a tiny voice said, trembling, "Please." "Don't hurt me," Rayner blinked. It was a child, a little alien girl. Her skin was pale silver, almost glowing in the dim light. Her eyes were large and bright blue, shining softly even in the dust. She was holding a small metal pendant in her hand, the symbol of the Zilari race. Rayner's heart beat faster. He had never seen a Zilari child before. They were supposed to be gone, wiped out in the bombing. He stepped closer. "Are you alone?" She didn't answer. She only stared at him, wide-eyed, afraid. Her small chest rose and fell quickly. Her arms and legs were covered in dirt and scratches. Rayner lowered his weapon slowly. "I won't hurt you," he said quietly. She tilted her head like she didn't understand. Then she said something soft in her language, words he didn't know. She looked down at the pendant, then back up at him, and then, she said in broken human words, "Will you be my father?" Rayner froze. He felt the words hit deep inside his chest like a bullet made of light. For a moment he couldn't breathe. His mind said it was impossible. This was the enemy, an alien child from the other side of the war. But her voice was small, honest, scared. He looked at her again. The trembling hands, the dusty face, the blue eyes full of tears. And his heart ached. He should have called command. He should have reported her as a hostile biological. That was the rule. But the radio on his shoulder was broken, and maybe that was for the best. He knelt down. "What's your name?" The girl blinked, then said slowly, "Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated softly. "I'm Rayner." Her eyes followed his every move as he cut the beam trapping her leg. When she tried to stand, she stumbled. He caught her before she fell. Her skin was cold like smooth stone. But her small hand gripped his armor tightly. For a long time, neither spoke. Outside, the wind howled through the broken buildings. Rayner looked out into the dark streets. If patrols found her, they'd kill her instantly. If command knew he was protecting her, they'd call him a traitor. Still, he couldn't leave her here. He sighed. "All right, kid," he said. "Stay close." She looked up at him again, her little blue eyes glowing with weak light, and gave a small nod. As they walked through the shadows, she stayed behind him, holding the back of his armor like a frightened shadow. She moved quietly, her small feet barely making a sound on the ash-covered ground. Every now and then, she would whisper his name, softly, like it was something safe. They reached a ruined shelter and stopped to rest. Rayner set down his rifle and checked the power core of his armor. Almost empty. He looked at the girl again. She was sitting on the cold floor, clutching her pendant tightly. "What happened to your people?" he asked gently. She didn't answer. Her eyes were full of something too deep for words. Sadness, loss, and fear. Rayner sighed again and leaned back against the wall. Somewhere far away, thunder rolled. Or maybe it was artillery fire. He closed his eyes for a moment. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But as strange as it was, he knew one thing. He couldn't abandon her. When he opened his eyes, she was already asleep beside him, her tiny head resting against his arm. And for the first time since the war began, Captain Rayner felt something he had almost forgotten. Peace. Morning never really came on that planet, only a dim red light that looked like an endless sunset. The sky was heavy with ash and the wind carried the smell of burnt metal. Captain Rayner opened his eyes to the sound of soft breathing. The little alien girl, Lyra, was still sleeping beside him, curled up under a piece of torn fabric. Her small fingers clutched his armor like she was afraid he'd disappear if she let go. He sat quietly, watching her for a moment. Her silver skin shimmered faintly in the dull light. She looked fragile, like one touch could break her. Yet something about her felt powerful, like she carried a secret the universe wasn't ready to tell. Rayner checked his rifle and his scanner. The screen flickered, no signals nearby, no life signs except the two of them. Still, he felt uneasy. Someone somewhere was watching, he whispered. Time to move, kid. Lyra stirred. Her bright blue eyes opened slowly. She looked up at him, blinking sleep away, then gave a small nod. Okay, father, she said softly. Rayner felt his throat tighten again. That word still hit hard every time. He wanted to tell her not to call him that, but he couldn't bring himself to say it. Instead, he just said, Stay close, Lyra, keep quiet. They stepped out into the ruins. The city stretched around them like a graveyard of machines. Huge towers leaned at broken angles, wires hung down like vines. Somewhere far away, something big fell with a deep metallic crash. As they walked, Lyra kept looking at everything. The sky, the debris, even the small glowing insects that crawled from cracks in the ground. Her eyes were full of wonder, even in this dying place. After a while she spoke. Why, did humans fight my people? Rayner sighed. Because we were afraid, he said simply. We saw things we didn't understand, and instead of learning, we destroyed. She tilted her head. You destroyed us? He hesitated. Yes, he said quietly. We did. Lyra looked down at her feet and said nothing. Her little hands trembled. Rayner wanted to say something more, but no words could fix what his kind had done. They found an old transport tunnel and decided to follow it. It was dark and narrow, but safe from drones. As they walked deeper, Rayner noticed something strange. Lights on the walls flickered as they passed. The systems were dead for years, but now they were coming alive, glowing faintly blue every time Lyra walked near them. Rayner stopped and frowned. How are you doing that? Lyra blinked. Doing what? He pointed at the wall. The lights. They react to you. She touched the metal gently, and a pattern of glowing symbols appeared beneath her hand. Alien symbols. They pulsed softly like a heartbeat. I don't know, she whispered. It listens to me. Rayner stared at the wall in silence. The Zalari had built living technology, machines that could think and feel energy. But this was more. It was like the whole place knew her. He realized then that she wasn't just a survivor. She was something different. Something important. Come on, he said, his voice tense. We can't stay here. They walked faster, but Lyra stopped suddenly. Her small head turned toward the tunnel's end. Someone's coming, she whispered. Rayner froze. He listened. At first he heard nothing. Then came a faint metallic hum, steady and sharp. He recognized it instantly. A human scout drone. Down! He hissed, pulling Lyra behind a broken column. The drone floated into view, a black sphere with a red eye glowing in the dark. It scanned the tunnel with a low humming sound. One wrong move and it would send their location to the nearest patrol. Lyra's breathing grew fast. Rayner put a finger to his lips. Shh, he whispered. The drone moved closer. Its red beam passed right over their hiding spot. Rayner held his breath. He reached for his weapon, but before he could fire, the drone stopped moving. The red light turned blue. Rayner blinked. The machine tilted slightly, then drifted away, as if it had never seen them. He looked at Lyra in disbelief. What did you do? She looked confused. It looked at me, and then it went away. Rayner didn't know what to say. Whatever Lyra was, she wasn't just a child. She had power, something that could turn enemy machines blind. He felt a chill down his spine. We have to keep moving, he said firmly. They climbed out of the tunnel into an open area filled with broken vehicles. The wind blew harder now, scattering dust and ash. Lyra walked beside him silently, holding the pendant around her neck. After a long moment, she whispered, "Father, why do you protect me?" Rayner looked at her small face. He wanted to say he didn't know, that it made no sense, that she was the enemy, but instead he said quietly, "Because no one else will." Lyra smiled, a small, shy smile that made the world seem a little less broken. They kept walking toward the distant mountains where Rayner hoped to find an old human outpost. Behind them, far away in the shadows, a camera lens flickered red again, recording everything. The signal traveled through space, reaching a ship in orbit. A cold human voice said, "We've found the traitor," and the alien child. The wind howled like a living thing across the empty plains. Rayner and Lyra moved through the ruins, shadows against a dying world. Every step echoed in the silence. They had walked for hours, leaving the broken city behind, heading toward the old mountains in the north. Rayner's armor was running low on power. The air filters blinked red. He could barely get a signal on his tracker. Still, he kept walking, one eye on the horizon, one hand holding Lyra's tiny fingers as she followed quietly beside him. He looked down at her sometimes. She walked without complaining, though her feet were bare and cut. Her silver skin had turned dusty gray, but her eyes still glowed softly, like two small stars in the dark. They reached a collapsed bridge at sunset. Below it ran a dry riverbed full of old bones and twisted metal. The smell of rust filled the air. "We'll rest here," Rayner said. Lyra nodded and sat down beside a piece of old armor half buried in sand. She stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "Was this one of your people?" Rayner looked at the armor. It had a human insignia. "Yes," he said quietly. She lowered her eyes. "So many died," she said softly. "Too many," Rayner replied. He wanted to say more, to tell her that some wars never end, that even victory feels like loss, but he couldn't find the right words. Then, his scanner beeped. A small red dot blinked on the screen, movement nearby. Rayner tensed. "Lyra, get down," he whispered. She obeyed instantly, crawling behind a piece of broken wall. Rayner crouched beside her, gripping his rifle. He turned off the scanner's light and listened. At first, there was only wind. Then came the crunch of boots. Several of them. Voices. Human voices. Rayner's heart sank. He peeked over the edge and saw 3 armored soldiers walking through the ruins, his people. The insignia on their suits matched his own, but their faces were hard, cold, and alert. One of them, the tallest, spoke through the comlink. "Command says he's close. Scan for biosigns. The target's a human male, ex-Captain Rayner, and a Zalari child." Rayner's stomach tightened. They were hunting him. He motioned for Lyra to stay silent. She nodded, eyes wide. The soldiers spread out, scanning the area with blue beams of light. The nearest one stopped right beside the wall where Lyra hid. His scanner beeped. "Sir," the soldier said, "I got something." Before he could move, Rayner jumped from behind the wall and slammed into him. The two crashed into the dirt. Rayner's rifle fired once, a burst of light him, and the soldier went still. "Contact!" shouted another. Gunfire ripped through the ruins. Sparks flew off metal walls. Rayner grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her behind a fallen beam. "Run!" he shouted. They dashed through the rubble as bullets tore through the air. Dust clouds rose everywhere. Lyra screamed when a blast hit near her feet. Rayner turned and fired back. 2 soldiers fell, their armor smoking. But the last one kept coming. Fast, ruthless. Rayner ducked behind a broken vehicle. His rifle was overheating. He looked at Lyra. She was shaking, clutching her pendant so hard it glowed. "Stay down," he said. She nodded, tears in her eyes. The last soldier shouted from behind cover. "Rayner, don't make it worse. Give us the alien." Rayner's jaw tightened. "She's just a child." "She's not a child," the soldier yelled. "She's a weapon." "You know what she is." Rayner didn't answer. His pulse pounded in his ears. He leaned out to shoot, but the soldier fired first. The bullet hit Rayner's shoulder plate, sending him crashing to the ground. Pain burned through his body. Lyra cried out, "Father!" The soldier stepped closer, gun aimed at Rayner's head. "I'm sorry, Captain." "Orders are orders." Then it happened. Lyra stood up. Her small hands glowed bright blue, brighter than before. The air around her shimmered like heat. The soldier froze. His gun shook in his hand. "Lyra, no!" Rayner shouted, but she didn't stop. The light spread from her body, humming like a heartbeat. The soldier's visor cracked. his armor's systems flickering out. Then with a flash of blue energy, everything went silent. When the light faded, the soldier lay on the ground, motionless. Lyra stared at her glowing hands in shock. I didn't mean to, she whispered. Raynor slowly stood, clutching his shoulder. You saved us, he said, voice rough. She looked at him, tears rolling down her face. But I hurt him. Raynor knelt and took her trembling hands in his. He would have killed us. You did what you had to do. She looked down, still shaking. Why am I like this? Why do I have this power? Raynor didn't have an answer. He only knew one thing now. The humans were right about one part. Lyra wasn't ordinary, but she wasn't a weapon. She was alive. She was scared. She was his. He stood and looked at the horizon. We need to move before more come, he said. Lyra nodded weakly, still holding his hand. As they disappeared into the fading light, the communicator on the dead soldier's body blinked. A voice crackled through it. Unit Delta, report. Did you find the target? Static, then silence. The night sky burned with distant fires. From the mountains, Raynor could see the glow of explosions miles away. The humans were searching, burning whole zones to flush him out. He and Lyra hid inside the remains of an ancient structure buried in the cliffs. It wasn't human and it wasn't Zalari either. The walls were made of smooth silver stone, covered in glowing veins of blue light. The place hummed softly, like it was alive. Raynor checked his wounds in the faint light. The bullet had grazed his shoulder, leaving a deep cut. He wrapped it in cloth, his hands trembling. Lyra sat nearby, hugging her knees. She hadn't spoken since the fight. He looked at her. You okay, kid? She didn't answer. She just stared at her hands. The same hands that had glowed bright blue. The same hands that had killed a soldier without a single touch. Raynor sighed. You saved us, Lyra. You did what you had to. Her little voice came out broken. I didn't want to hurt him. But the light, it just came out. It felt like it wasn't even me. He moved closer and placed a hand on her shoulder. Sometimes things happen in war that we don't understand. But what matters is what you choose next. Lyra looked up at him, eyes full of confusion and guilt. Why do I have this power, Father? What am I? That question hit him harder than any bullet. He didn't have an answer. But he knew they needed one. So he stood, turned on his wrist scanner and began to look around the strange chamber. The scanner flickered with static, yet it detected something deep below the floor. Stay close, and he told her. They followed a tunnel that led deeper underground. The deeper they went, the warmer the air became and the hum of energy grew louder. It felt like walking through the veins of a sleeping giant. At the end of the tunnel, they found a large circular door. It had no handle, only a glowing panel covered in alien symbols. Lyra stepped forward. Her pendant, the same one she always carried, began to glow. The door responded instantly. The symbols shifted and unlocked like they recognized her. Raynor watched in awe as the door opened with a hiss. Inside was a chamber filled with holographic light. Floating in the air were old recordings, human scientists, Zalari engineers, and machines working together. Lyra gasped. What is this place? Raynor stared at the symbols on the walls. He tapped his scanner and the translation feed began to display words. Project Unity, Phase 1. His eyes widened. He remembered hearing rumors during the war. Secret programs run by both sides. Experiments to merge human and Zalari DNA to create a being that could survive both worlds. Lyra, he said slowly. I think this place made you. She blinked, confused. Made me? He nodded. You're not just Zalari. You're part human too, she shook her head. That's not possible. I had a mother. Raynor looked at her gently. Maybe she cared for you. But she didn't create you. This place did, Lyra's lip trembled. Then I'm not real? He knelt beside her. You're real to me, he said firmly. You breathe, you feel, you care. That's more real than anything those machines ever built. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked around the chamber as holograms flickered to life again. A human scientist appeared, speaking to a Zalari elder. The hybrid child will carry both of our essences, said the scientist. She will be the bridge between our worlds, the elder replied. But if either side finds out, they'll destroy her, said the scientist grimly. The hologram ended. The room dimmed. Lyra stood silently, her small shoulders shaking. They made me to end the war, she whispered. But the war destroyed them instead. Raynor looked around at the ancient chamber, at the ghosts of hope and science that once lived here. Maybe they failed, he said softly. But that doesn't mean you will. She turned to him. What do you mean? He smiled sadly. You could still be what they dreamed of, the bridge. The one who ends this madness. Before Lyra could reply, Raynor's scanner beeped. Multiple signals. Human patrols closing in. He cursed under his breath. They found us. Lyra's eyes widened. What do we do? Raynor grabbed his rifle and pulled her toward the tunnel. We run. They sprinted through the glowing corridors as the hum of engines echoed above. Drones entered the structure, their red lights slicing through the dark. Blaster fire erupted, burning holes in the walls. Raynor shielded Lyra with his body as they dove behind cover. A voice echoed from the comms overhead, cold, calm, and familiar. Captain Raynor, said Commander Hark's voice. You can't hide forever. Bring the child to us. That's an order. Raynor froze. Hark had once been his mentor, the man who taught him what honor meant. Now he was hunting him. He pressed his comm. She's not your weapon, Hark. Hark's reply was ice cold. She's not a child, Raynor. She's the key, and keys don't get to choose where they're used. The comm went silent. Raynor turned to Lyra, his voice steady. No matter what happens, I won't let them take you. Lyra looked at him, eyes full of light and fear. Then we fight together, Father. He smiled faintly. Yeah, together. They stepped into the darkness as the temple around them began to shake. Old machines waking for the first time in centuries. The ground trembled like a living heartbeat. Dust fell from the ceiling as the ancient temple began to wake. Lights ran through the walls like veins of fire, glowing brighter with every pulse. Raynor grabbed Lyra's hand. We need to move. The hum beneath their feet grew louder, shaking the floor. From deep inside the walls came the echo of gears and metal shifting, as if the mountain itself was alive. They ran through the winding tunnels, chased by the sound of machines roaring back to life. Outside, the night sky lit up with flashes of blue light, ships descending through the clouds. They're here, Raynor muttered. Lyra looked up, fear in her glowing eyes. Your people? He nodded grimly. Human strike team, and they're not here to talk. They burst out onto a high stone platform overlooking the valley. The air was hot and full of ash. Above them, dropships hung like dark birds, their engines screaming. Raynor set Lyra behind a piece of fallen stone. Stay low. Whatever happens, you don't leave this spot. She clutched his hand. You'll come back? He forced a small smile. Always. Then he stood, loaded his rifle, and faced the sky. The first ship landed in a storm of dust. Armored soldiers poured out, weapons glowing. At the front of them stood Commander Hark, tall, gray-haired, his face hidden behind a visor. Raynor. His voice boomed through the loudspeaker. You've gone too far. Step away from the hybrid. Raynor shouted back, she has a name. Her name is Lyra. Hark's tone didn't change. You've disobeyed orders, killed your own men, and sided with the enemy. Don't make me add your name to the list of casualties. Raynor raised his rifle but didn't fire. I won't let you take her. Then you've already made your choice, Hark said coldly. A signal flickered from his hand. The soldiers opened fire. The mountains exploded with sound, blue plasma and red tracers lighting the air. Raynor dove for cover, returning fire with sharp precision. One soldier fell, then another, but there were too many. Lyra crouched behind the stone, trembling. The light in her hands flickered again, reacting to her fear. Father, she cried. Raynor turned, shouting, stay down! But it was too late. A blast struck near her hiding spot. The ground split apart and Lyra fell into a lower chamber. Lyra! Raynor screamed, running toward her. He jumped down after her, landing hard. Pain shot through his leg. But when he looked up, he froze. The chamber they had fallen into wasn't darkened, it was alive. Giant circular walls pulsed with blue and white light. In the center was a crystal-like structure, beating slowly like a heart. Lyra stood near it, her pendant glowing so bright it was almost blinding. Lyra, don't touch it, he shouted. She turned to him with tears streaming down her silver cheeks. It's calling to me, Father. It wants to help. Help with what? To stop the killing. Before he could stop her, she placed her small hand on the crystal. The entire chamber exploded with light. Raynor shielded his eyes as a deep voice filled the air. Not human, not Solari, but something older. The bridge has awakened. Balance must be restored, the walls shifted. Energy burst outward in waves. Above the mountain, the sky turned blue-white. On the surface, soldiers screamed as their ships malfunctioned. Engines shut down, weapons froze, and drones crashed from the sky. Commander Hark watched in horror as his systems died. "What is she doing?" he shouted. Inside, Rayner stumbled toward Lyra. The light swirled around her like a storm. He could barely hear his own voice. "Lyra, you have to stop." She looked at him through the light, her voice trembling. "I can't. It's too strong." He reached her and grabbed her shoulders. "Then let me help you." The energy hit him like fire, but he didn't let go. Together they stood inside the storm as the temple shuddered. The crystal cracked, sending one final wave of power through the valley. When the light faded, everything was silent. The ships had vanished. The soldiers were gone. The only sound left was the wind. Rayner opened his eyes slowly. Lyra was lying in his arms, unconscious but breathing. The pendant around her neck had turned completely white. He looked around. The walls had gone dark again. The power was gone. Whatever she had done had stopped the attack, at least for now. He brushed a hand through her hair. "You did it, kid. You saved us." She stirred weakly, whispering, "Did I stop the fighting?" He hesitated. "For today." Her eyes fluttered open. "That's enough for now." Rayner smiled faintly. "Yeah, that's enough." He carried her out of the chamber, limping toward the open sky. Above them, the red clouds were slowly fading, revealing the first stars. But as they reached the surface, he saw something that froze his blood. A massive shadow in orbit, the human command ship, still hovered above the planet. Its cannons were turning toward the mountain. Rayner's comm crackled to life one last time. "You think you stopped us, Rayner?" Hark's voice said. "You've only delayed the inevitable. The girl belongs to us, and when the temple falls, so will you." Rayner looked at the sky, holding Lyra close. "Then you'll have to go through me first." The sky was burning. Flames fell from the heavens as the human command ship aimed its cannons toward the mountain. Each pulse of energy glowed like a false sun, lighting the valley in red and gold. Rayner stood on the edge of the shattered temple, armor cracked, one arm holding Lyra close. The ground trembled with every rumble above them. His heart pounded not from fear, but from knowing this was the end. He looked down at the small alien girl in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, her silver skin dimming. The pendant around her neck still glowed faint white, pulsing weakly with her heartbeat. "Lyra," he whispered, "you have to stay with me, okay? Just a little longer." Her voice came soft, almost lost in the wind. "They're scared, Father." "Your people. They think I'll destroy them." Rayner looked up at the sky. "They destroy what they fear. That's what we've always done." She shook her head weakly. "No, you didn't." For a moment, his heart softened. He pressed his forehead against hers. "You made me remember what being human means, kid." Then the comm in his helmet crackled again. Commander Hark's voice cut through the static. "Captain Rayner, this is your last warning. Step away from the alien and surrender. The temple will be erased from orbit in 60 seconds. Rayner stared at the sky, teeth clenched. "You'll have to burn the planet to do it." "If that's what it takes." The signal went dead. Rayner's eyes narrowed. "So that's it," he muttered. "They'll kill everything just to win again." He looked back toward the heart of the temple, the giant cracked crystal that had saved them earlier. It still hummed faintly, calling softly as if alive. Lyra's eyes fluttered open. "It wants to speak," she whispered. "The planet. It wants to tell them something," he frowned. "Tell who?" "Everyone." Before he could stop her, Lyra rose from his arms and walked toward the crystal. The ground seemed to recognize her footsteps, glowing symbols lighting the path as she moved. Rayner reached out. "Lyra, wait!" But she didn't stop. She placed both hands on the crystal. The entire temple lit up in a flash of silver blue light. The sound that followed wasn't thunder. It was something deeper, like a voice speaking through the bones of the world. The light shot upward through the clouds, piercing the sky and spreading across the planet like a beacon. Every ship, every drone, every soldier froze as a wave of energy passed through them. And then, the message began. A vision filled the air, projected from the mountain and broadcast across the human fleet. Images of both species, human and Zalari, flashed in the light. Cities burning, children crying, planets scarred by war, And then, scenes of unity. Humans and aliens building together, smiling, planting trees in soil healed by time. The voice that spoke was Lyra's. Soft, pure, yet echoing across space. You built walls and called them safety. You built weapons and called them peace. You forgot what it means to be alive together. I am not your enemy. I am your reflection, born from both worlds, carrying both hearts. The stars do not belong to one race. They belong to all who dream. On the command ship, the soldiers stopped firing. Even Commander Hark stood frozen as the message filled the control room. The light from the transmission illuminated his face, showing a flicker of doubt in his cold eyes. If you destroy me, Lyra's voice continued, you destroy what makes you human. Your hope, your mercy, your heart. Raynor watched from below, tears stinging his eyes. He could barely believe what he was seeing. The air shimmered around him like warm sunlight after endless winter. Lyra turned her head slightly, her gaze finding him through the storm of light. Father, she whispered, I can show them peace. But I need your strength. He limped forward, ignoring the pain, and placed his hand on her shoulder. You already have it, kid. The light around them flared again, brighter than ever. The crystal's broken edges began to fuse back together, glowing white-hot. The entire planet's core pulsed in rhythm with Lyra's heartbeat. Above, the command ship systems went wild. Screens filled with unreadable symbols. Power surged through every circuit. Commander Hark shouted, "Shut it down! Fire the cannons!" But his crew didn't move. They were staring at the vision, at the image of a small child standing beside a human soldier surrounded by stars. Something deep inside them had shifted. Down below, Lyra's light reached its peak. She floated slightly above the ground, her hair streaming like silver fire. The mountain glowed from its roots to its peak. Raynor shielded his eyes as the air shook one last time, then exploded outward in a wave of warmth and silence. When it ended, the sky was calm. The command ship hung motionless in orbit, its weapons disarmed. The clouds were gone, replaced by a soft golden light spreading across the land. Lyra lay on the ground motionless, her pendant dim. Raynor rushed to her side, heart pounding. He lifted her gently. Lyra, talk to me. Her eyes opened just a little. Did they hear me? Raynor smiled, tears rolling down his face. Yeah, kid. They heard you. She gave a faint smile. Then maybe it's over. Her head rested against his chest. The pendant gave one last faint pulse, then went still. Raynor looked at the sky, whispering, "You did it," and somewhere far above. In the human ship, Commander Hark removed his helmet and looked at the light still glowing over the mountain. For the first time in his long career, he lowered his weapon. Silence. After all the fire and chaos, the world had gone completely still. No ships, no screams, no thunder of war, only the wind whispering through the broken peaks. Captain Raynor knelt on the cracked stone, cradling Lyra in his arms. Her small silver face looked peaceful, almost asleep, but the faint light that once glowed in her pendant had faded to nothing. Come on, kid, he murmured, brushing the dust from her cheeks. Open your eyes. You did it. You stopped them. There was no answer. Only the soft hum of the wind and the far-off song of the planet itself. A low, trembling vibration like a heartbeat deep in the soil. Raynor pressed his forehead against hers. His voice cracked as he whispered, You can't leave me now, Lyra. Not after everything. A single tear rolled down his face, landing on her pendant. The crystal flickered, once faintly, then went dark again. Raynor froze. Lyra. Nothing. He looked up at the sky, filled with golden clouds and the last traces of battle smoke. The human fleet still hovered there, silent, watching. For the first time in history, they weren't firing. The war was over, but it didn't feel like victory. He closed his eyes and whispered, You wanted peace. You gave it to them. But who gives peace to you? He laid her gently on the ground and stood, pain burning through his leg and shoulder. He looked toward the temple's heart, the great crystal that had once glowed with her light. It now pulsed weakly, flickering like a dying star. Then he heard it. A voice, soft, echoing inside his mind. Don't cry, Father. Raynor turned sharply. Lyra was still lying motionless, but the voice came from her. Or maybe from everywhere. The planet listens now. It remembers me. His chest tightened. Lyra, is that you? Yes. Her pendant began to glow faint blue again. The light spread over her chest, then across the ground, tracing lines through the cracks in the stone. The whole mountain began to breathe, slow, deep, alive. Raynor fell to his knees beside her. You're alive, he whispered. You're still here. Her lips moved slightly, though her eyes remained closed. Not like before. I'm part of this place now. The temple. It's alive, Father. It's awake. He looked around in awe. The walls shimmered, showing moving shapes, forests growing, rivers flowing, stars forming above alien skies. It was as if the planet was painting dreams across its own skin. What's happening? He asked softly. Lyra's voice grew stronger, filling the air like music. When I spoke to them, I also spoke to the world. It heard our pain. It doesn't want to die anymore. It wants to heal. The ground around them began to change. Cracked stone turned into soft moss. The air grew warm and sweet. The blackened ruins of the battlefield began to shimmer with green light, as if the planet itself was repairing its wounds. Raynor stood in disbelief. You're changing it. You're healing the planet. Lyra smiled faintly. Not me, us. You stayed by my side. You believed when no one else did. He knelt beside her again, holding her small hand gently. I made a promise, he said. A father doesn't walk away. Her hand squeezed his weakly. Then keep walking, Father. Tell them what we learned. Tell them it's not too late to love again. Tears filled his eyes. You'll come with me, right? Lyra's glow grew brighter, wrapping around them like sunlight through water. I'll always be with you, she said. Even when you can't see me. The light grew until it was blinding. Raynor covered his eyes, and when he opened them again, she was gone. Only the pendant remained, resting in his palm, pulsing softly with a living heartbeat. He stared at it for a long moment, then looked up. The warships were gone. The sky was clear and blue for the first time in decades, and below, the valleys that had once been ash and ruin were now green and blooming. Raynor took a deep breath. The air smelled of rain. He could feel the planet breathing again. He whispered, she did it. Then he looked at the pendant in his hand. We did it. He placed it gently around his neck and began to walk down the mountain. Each step was heavy, but the land beneath his boots was soft, alive, and full of light. As he walked, he could almost hear her voice again, faint, laughing softly like a memory. Father, look. The stars are watching. He looked up. The night sky was alive with color, rivers of blue and gold light swirling like waves. The stars shone brighter than ever, as if the universe itself was smiling back. He smiled through his tears. Yeah, kid, he whispered. They're watching. He kept walking toward the horizon, the pendant glowing against his chest, a small rhythm of hope beating in sync with his own heart. Behind him, the ancient temple pulsed one last time, sending a beam of gentle light into the sky. Not as a weapon, not as a warning, but as a promise that life would begin again. Years later, travelers from both human and Zilari worlds would come to that mountain. They would find green fields and blue rivers, and they would tell stories of a soldier and a small silver child who stopped a war. Some called it a legend, some called it a miracle. But those who listened closely to the wind swore they could still hear a child's voice whispering, "He stayed by my side."